Colin Spaull is one of a very small band of actors who've appeared in both the classic and the new series of Doctor Who. He's worked with 4 different Doctors. Colin Baker in Revelation of the Daleks, David Tennant in Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel, Ben Paul McGann in Grand Theft Cosmos for Big Finish Productions, and Peter Davidson in The Last Detective. Colin originally trained at the Italia Conti Stage School, the renowned drama school in London's Soho. That's where he first met Graham Harper, who went on to become one of the best-known Doctor Who directors. Colin himself started his career with a bang. His first professional job was starring as Pip in BBC TV's Great Expectations. He then became the youngest member of the 1967 Old Vic Theatre Company, playing the boy parts in Shakespeare. Since then, he's made films with Peter Sellers and David Niven. He's been directed by Alfred Hitchcock. He's appeared in a stack of West End theatre productions, including The 4th of June, Spring Awakening and Present Laughter. He also works as a voiceover artist and documentary narrator. Since the age of 11, Colin has spent most of his life in front of either a microphone, a film camera or a TV camera. On TV, he's appeared in basically everything. The list is huge. It includes Morse, The Last Detective, The In-Betweeners, Doctors, Holby City, EastEnders, Casualty, The Britas Empire. It goes on. His Big Finish productions include Grand Theft Cosmos, The Dalek Empire and more recently Graceless. His life outside the profession, and yes he has one, revolves around his family. That's his wife Sally and 3 children, Lucy, Polly and Elliot, and 2 grandchildren, Anna and Freddie. Colin enjoys real ale and he's a strong believer in the campaign to keep Britain's local pubs open. He plays a lot of golf but says he's not very good at it. And his other interests have wheels. That's his motorcycle, a 650cc Kawasaki motorbike, and his Jaguar XJ8 V8, which he says he loves.
Colin Who is about my life in show business. I have been an actor now for 65 years and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I decided to write the book really as a bit of an exercise in my memory. I found it absolutely fascinating. Some of the things I've done, some of the things, some of the people I've met. It's been a fantastic journey, and I do hope that whoever reads this gets as much pleasure from it as I did in writing it. Enjoy.
Colin Spall recalls an encounter with Fraser Heinz in 1961. They'd been working together on a TV series called Yorkie with Wilfred Pickles. He says, "I dimly remember travelling home with him by train. It might even have been pulled by a steam locomotive, it was that long ago. We spent much of the time playing cards. I think we were playing for money. I know I hoped to reduce him to betting his cowboy boots and losing them to me. But I wasn't that good at poker, or bridge, canasta whist, pontoon, or even snap for that matter, and I'm no better now. I had to go for the better part of 50 years without owning a pair of cowboy boots. Turns out it's a style of footwear we've both come to like. Together in Texas recently, Fraser and I each bought ourselves a new pair." Colin and Fraser Heinz became lifelong friends, and Heinz wrote the foreword to Colin Spaull's autobiography, Colin Who. Colin Who by Colin Spall. Foreword by Fraser Heinz. Dear reader, here is the foreword to my good friend Colin's book. The book has been a long time coming, but there again, he's been a long time acting. I first met Colin, or Splat as he was known, more of that later, many moons ago. Once upon a time there were lots of little boy actors roaming the streets of London on the way to auditions. If it was a film, then Richard O'Sullivan usually got it. If a TV show, then usually Colin or me. The TV series we first met on was Heidi in 1959. The producer was Joy Harrington. Colin played Peter the goatherd and I was in an episode as an organ grinder. The monkey was already cast, otherwise who knows. Then he was Pip in BBC's Great Expectations, whilst I played Jan in the BBC's The Silver Sword. These two shows set us on the way to fame and fortune. Oh yes, fame. So much so that years later we were at the All-Stars Gala at Battersea Park and ended up being chased by screaming girls trying to rip our clothes off. We took refuge behind a barrier and signed so many autographs that his ended up as Clinsplat. Then I was whisked into the universe of Doctor Who and we lost touch. But I'm so glad that Doctor Who brought us back together at a convention, and from that day onwards our friendship has rekindled, and we've spent many happy days on Doctor Who cruises. I know you'll love this book, and there's no point me telling you of all the famous people he's worked with, because he'll tell you himself. Read on. Fraser Heinz.
Colin Who? The weather was vile, and an icy blast was running up my left trouser leg, chilling all it found at the end of the tunnel before roaring down my right leg, sending shivers into my toes. Ahead of me stood the ladder I was expected to climb to reach my seat in the commentary box at Gillingham Football Club's ground in Kent. I don't usually have a problem with ladders. Occasionally, when times were hard, I worked as a builder's labourer and hod carrier. But I was a bit younger then. A man of my age should definitely not be expected to climb ladders under any circumstances, let alone in the open air and in weather like this. Yet here I was about to climb the one to the next step in my film career, starring as a football commentator in Make Aliens Dance, a short film destined to be shown at major film festivals in the United States. Looking back over my life, I find myself at a bit of a loss as to how it all came about. Time for some detailed reflection. Should I look backwards from today or forwards from the 40s? I've spent most of my life before a TV camera, a film camera, a microphone or footlights. What, though, was the last truly memorable thing I did? Was it as bad as this? In my line of work, you often find yourself being abused, sometimes verbally, sometimes physically, and occasionally both, such as when you appear in Catherine Tate's Christmas show on BBC television. In 2015, I played Miss Tate's hapless neighbour, Bernie, who, despite the indignities he suffers at her hands, including being knocked to the ground and sprayed with foam from a fire extinguisher, remains resolutely infatuated with the repulsive Nan character. I shouldn't complain. She managed to humiliate most everyone in the show, even Warwick Davis, who had done nothing to deserve it. An interesting experience, but one which gave me pause for thought. How had I, a South London boy whose family weren't actors or entertainers, come to be watched by millions of people as I endured such treatment? It then occurred to me that I was probably starting at the wrong end. Life is, after all, a story, with a beginning, a middle, and, well, let's not get morbid. I think it must have been about 45 years or maybe more ago when somebody said to me, "Oh, Colin, why don't you write your life story? Why don't you write a book about your life?" And I thought about it. I thought, "Oh, yeah, that's a good idea." But then I stopped. I thought, no, wait a minute. 45 years ago, I hadn't lived much of my life anyway. So I thought, well, what on earth is there to write about? So I promptly forgot all about it and it went out of my mind. And then about 3 years ago or so, I was imbibing in a local hostelry with a mate, and he said to me, "Why don't you write your biography, Col?" And I thought about it, and I said, "Yes, I'm 76. I've lived a bit. I'll give it a go." And I did, and I have. And I hope you read it, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you get as much pleasure from reading it as I did in writing it.
This is Talk Radio Europe Daybreak, presented by Hannah Murray.
Good morning. Joining us on the line now is Colin Spall, one of England's most prolific actors. Starting as a child actor with his first major role in 1958, he's barely been off our screens since. Despite this, for much of his career, though his face was familiar to all, no one knew his name. His book, Colin Who, depicts his career with various roles in Doctor Who, as well as The Catherine Tate Show, EastEnders, Morse, Dixon of Dock Green, Holby City, and The Benny Hill Show, to name a few. Welcome to the show, Colin.
Good morning, and thank you so much.
Oh, it's lovely to have you with us. Thanks very much for joining us. So I bet it was great fun putting this book together, was it?
It was. It was something that I thought about many years ago. Somebody said to me once, "Oh, Colin, why don't you write your life story?" And I thought, "Oh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea." But then I thought, well, it was so long ago, and I was still a very young man. I thought, I haven't had a life. So I shelved it and didn't think any more about it until about 3 years ago. Once again, somebody said to me, "Why don't you write your life story, Colin?" And then I went, I did, and that's why the book was written.
Yes, no, it's a great idea. And how? Tell us more about this Colin Who thing. Has that really been a thing throughout your career?
Well, no, it's quite strange, really, because writing the book, of course, you need to come up with a title. And I thought of all sorts of strange, weird names and prayed about who's, oh no, not that one, Colin, oh no, don't like that one. And so I then thought back to many years ago. As a young actor, I was probably about 16ish or something. And somebody said to me, "Oh, and what do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm an actor." He said, "Oh, indeed, yeah, lovely. And what's your name?" I said, "Colin Spall." And he said, "Colin Who?" And why I've always remembered that, I do not know, but remember it, I did. And then I thought, that might be an idea for the book. It also incorporates the fact that I did Doctor Who as well, so it covers both areas.
Yes. So what was your first big role that you remember?
Oh, crikey. I was... my agent then, I was at a drama school called the Italia Conti Stage School, and the school also, you trained there to be an actor, but also it was an agency. And you get the BBC or various people ring up and say, "Oh, we need a lad or a girl to be in this play or this film or whatever." And one day the call came through, and I was summoned to the office at the Conti School, and they said, "The BBC want to see you. They're doing a serialisation of Great Expectations, and they're looking at you for the part of young Pip." So, of course, I toddled along with loads of other young, hopeful lads of about my age. And then eventually it turned out that I got it. So that was my first major role. And then that led to a lot of the Sunday afternoon classic series that the BBC put on. I then went straight into Heidi. I played Peter the Goat Herd. And then I went into the Secret Garden. I played Dickon. I did a lot of the Sunday afternoon classic series then. But that was my main part. The biggest part to date was that of Pip.
Fantastic. And what about all the different people that you've worked with throughout your career? Have you ever been starstruck?
Well, not really, except for one particular occasion. I was making a film with a wonderful actor who was probably the best known English actor in Hollywood at the time, a gentleman by the name of David Niven. And I spent 3.5 months up a mountain in Austria with him, making a movie, which was just absolutely. He was such a lovely man. First day on the set, we all go, "Oh, yes, Mr. Niven, no, Mr. Niven." He said, "No, won't stop there. It's David." And so that's what he was. He was very relaxed, but absolutely charming. And all of us on the shoot were enamoured with him. He was such a nice man.
Oh, that's so good to hear, isn't it? Because you hear horrible stories sometimes about big stars, and you think, "Oh no, I always hoped or thought they were such a nice man." And so it's good to hear that many of them are.
Yeah, absolutely, and it just genuinely down to earth. I mean, at one particular point. It does get mentioned in my book. He said to me, "Do you fancy walking with me today, Colin?" Because he used to, at the end of the shoot, the daily shoot, he would sometimes walk a little way down the mountainside from the location. And he said, do you fancy walking with me? And of course I thought, "Yes, of course, David, no problem at all." and I just had this picture in my mind of myself walking with the most famous British face in Hollywood at the time, walking down this mountainside with David Niven's car was following slowly behind, and my car following behind David Niven's car. And it's something I've never forgotten. I wish there was a photograph of it,
Oh,
but I haven't got one.
yes. Oh, what a shame. And what about your time at Doctor Who? You've had various roles over the years, haven't you?
Yes, at one particular point, I was one of a small band of actors that have appeared in the classic Who and the modern Who. Yeah, I first did it when Colin Baker was playing the Doctor in the 80s. I think it was the 80s. I can't actually remember. And but then I was asked to go back into it about 25, 26 years later with David Tennant. So it was lovely, and of course you get invited to all these conventions, and which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, I've never been to America so many times in my life.
But is it great being on sets and being involved in all of that? Is it exciting?
Well, I suppose it is, but it is, after all, a job. And yes, it is. And when I first did the Doctor Who, I had no idea the impact that it was going to have, and it's still going up to 65 years or something. But then when you do it again, you think, oh yeah, this could be good, and this is going to be nice. It means I'll get to more conventions. But the fans are just brilliant when you do these American things. They're just absolutely brilliant, and it's great fun and a pleasure to do.
Yes, people are obsessed, aren't they?
Oh my goodness me! I mean, they come dressed up as various characters, and it's absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. But brilliant, they love it, and we love doing it. We've all missed it. I was speaking to a couple of Doctor Who fans and also some Doctor Who actors. How much we miss it, because it's sort of virtually every other weekend we were either at a convention somewhere up in the north or the south of England, or on our way to the States to do one in Florida or places like that. It's just a shame. It's all gone so quiet because of this dreaded coronavirus.
Yes, very, very difficult for actors to be getting work or anything. There's just nothing happening, is there?
No, absolutely. It's horrendous, but there we go.
Yeah.
Nothing we can do about it, I'm afraid.
No. And comedy as well. I wanted to ask you about comedy, because I know you've done things in various comedies. Yeah. Benny Hill show, I mentioned, Catherine Tate show. Do you enjoy doing comedy?
Oh, I do. Yeah, it is, because a lot of actors say this, but to do comedy, you've got to play it straight. You don't play it for laughs. And because the laugh comes because you're playing it straight, if you get my drift. But yeah, it was lovely. It was great fun doing the show with Catherine. And we actually had rehearsal time. These days, when you do a show or a play, for example, when I first did Doctor Who, we had a week's rehearsal. But then when I went into it again with the David Tennant era, I was just taken up to Cardiff and then put onto the set, and you do it, learn your lines, and hope that you've got the character right, because there were no rehearsal times.
Wow.
But when I did the Catherine Tate show, we actually rehearsed. So there were all of us in a little church hall off of Hammersmith, and we rehearsed. So therefore, it's you know what you're doing more when you come to actually to work in front of the cameras. It's a bit easier because you think you know what you're doing. You've had a good few run-throughs.
Yeah. So what did you do on the Catherine Tate show?
I play her hapless neighbour called Bernie, who's obviously desperately in love with her, and she shows she very strange lady. The part that she plays, she has no regard for anyone, and she insults as many people as she possibly can. And at one particular point, I was trying to deliver something to her flat, because my flat was below hers in the show, and but then she assaulted me with a fire extinguisher. She then tied me up. She then put me in a cupboard, and all the time I'm just thinking, I love this woman, and it doesn't matter, and I'm quite happy with what she's doing to me. But it was just a great fun to do. Such a good show to do.
Yes, I bet. So have you got any big jobs coming up, or is it really, because of what's happening, nobody really knows what's happening?
It's flatlining. It is. Oh. No, not at all. I mean, there are things in the air. I'm supposed to do a reading for a film with a great friend of mine called Fraser, Heinz, but that's all on hold. So maybe it was only a rough read through as a script reading to see whether or not there were make this movie. But even that's been on hold. So maybe that will happen next year. I know that some of the Doctor Who conventions are happening next year. One of the nice ones, of course, one of the perks, is the Doctor Who Caribbean cruise out of Miami.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, I've done about 5 or 6 of them now, and it's amazing. And they just stick you on this ship and float you around the Caribbean for a weekend, for a couple of weeks, and then it's amazing. It's just great fun to do. Everyone wants to do it. So I'm doing it again next year with Fraser, Heinz, and Sylvester McCoy, and a few others. So it should be good fun again.
Oh, fantastic. So people book if they're Doctor Who fans to come on and meet you all. And wonderful.
It takes place on a massive cruise ship. We're holding about 3,000 or 4,000 people, but there's only about 100, if that, of fans. So what we have to do as the actors, we all we really do is just to have dinner at a different table every night on the cruise. That's as hard as it gets. And the rest of the time is yours. And then you go with them on these excursions. The last one we did last year, we were swimming with dolphins somewhere in Mexico or something. I can't remember it was. But you do all those sort of things, which is just absolutely amazing, just because you made an appearance in a popular TV show.
Fabulous stuff. Good work if you can get it.
Absolutely it is, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, it's been lovely to chat with you, Colin Spall. Thank you so much for joining us. If listeners want to read more and find out more about you and your very interesting life, they can get a copy of Colin Who. It's on our website in the bookshop section, tre.radio. Colin, thanks for joining us.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me on.